Hello. Oh, there's two. One. Where's that one? Yeah, it's saying we're live on my screen, so roll with it. Good
Let's just
evening,
pretend we're
everyone. Welcome
live.
to Captive Body. Yeah, we're live pretending, right? I hope it's legit. Welcome to Captive Audience, everyone. This is Don Anderson and Leslie Snyder, your hosts, here to entertain and hopefully inform you. But if you don't get informed, at least you'll be entertained. So we're glad you're here tonight for yet another wonderful Wednesday. And obviously, there's always a lot to talk about. And it looks like we got a California centric discussion given the results of the election, or at least where we are in the election, because California is one of those places where the elections kind of never end until the count
Mhm.
comes out the way the Democrats want it to. But at least right now, it looks pretty interesting and exciting. So I thought we'd start off with that. And of course, there's always a plethora. Ooh, I got a fancy new word for you. A plethora of stuff to discuss on top of that. So I thought the most interesting thing of all is, of course, this LA election. So
Yeah.
why don't we start off? Why don't we kick off with that? So wow, you're down there near the epicenter of this, only 100 miles south in San Diego. What have you to say about all that, Leslie?
Oh my gosh. I just jumped out of my seat this morning when I checked the election results and saw that Spencer Pratt is in the top two with Karen Bass leading the way, which I feel like I'm not totally surprised because I feel like Democrats just wouldn't, like deep Democrats are just not going to vote for Pratt. So they chose Karen Bass, who's already the mayor, for over Nithya Raman, who's a council member. I mean, she's offensive. Karen's offensive, but it's just like I think they just felt like they had to vote for a Democrat, and she was, I don't know, maybe the one that they thought would be stronger against Spencer. We'll see what happens when we actually get into the real election, but um, I mean, it's gonna be wild. His ads and the kind of support that he's been getting are it's strong. It's very strong. It's very creative. It's surprising. But he, kind of in a way, he's like Trump because he just gets out there and says it. And he's not fancy. He's not, eloquent. Um, but he's real and he's affected and he's passionate. So nobody can debate the fact that he knows his stuff because he can just look around him, his burned out home site, and he can say, I'm on the ground, this is what's happening. I'm just like you. Versus, other Karen Bass and Nithya Raman who are elites. Karen Bass has been bouncing around politics for 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So she has no, she's got a guaranteed pension because she's worked for a municipality for the last, 3 decades. She's had, continuous raises during that time, and she'll continue to be protected with all of the fancy, health insurance and other kinds of benefits. She's in the protected class. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have access to that, meaning you don't know somebody who's in that class who reveals what the benefits are, or certainly if you're not in it yourself, you have absolutely no idea how kind of secluded these people are. People think that billionaires and celebrities are special and are in a bubble apart from regular people, and they are. However, there's a lot of billionaires and celebrities who had to make their way there. They had to make their
Mm-hmm.
way, and they continue to make their way. I mean, we've all seen celebrities that show up and then disappear, right? And then they have to work in order to get themselves back. We've seen billionaires who's lost their businesses. They have to work in order to get things back. Um, Once you're in the ruling class, you're in. As long as you want to stay there, you're in. And even when you're out, you still have all of the benefits. You still have the pension. You still have this sort of long stand, insurance benefits. I mean, all of these things. You still have all the connections. You're in it for life. I mean, it's really an amazing place to be in our society and in our economy. So here's Spencer, who's coming in. He's got a little bit of prestige because he was a B-list actor, right? So he's got a little bit of name recognition, and he knows how to challenge this woman. He knows how to dress her down. He knows how to shame her. and he's got a whole posse behind him. I mean, she even came out recently and said something about how, what does he know about, running a city? He's just an actor. You're talking to LA. Like, this used to be the acting capital of the country, right? I mean, it's not anymore because California policies have driven out a lot of production work. So they're going to Montana, they're going to Tennessee, they're going to Canada, right? But there's nothing that she can say right. So it's going to be entertaining, if nothing else. And I think it's going to be a huge upset. I do think that Spencer stands a chance. And if they play it straight, if we have a real election, I think Spencer's going to get it.
And here's the thing. I think it's largely because this is not going to be about who looks the best, who sounds the smoothest, who has the best sound bites. This is about all he's got to do is speak to what people feel on the street. And as you just pointed out a moment ago, he himself is one of them. They burnt the whole Palisades to the pavement. And she was over in Nigeria visiting, what do you call it, showboating in, I think, Liberia, another communist outpost, in another country, while the city was burning to the ground. I mean, all he's got to do is speak to that stuff. The Santa Anas, which happen every year, you were told they were especially bad this year. The reservoirs didn't have water due to the policies of the mayor and the policies of the governor, the policies of the Democratic Party. They weren't allowed to clear away the brush due to, again, the environmental wacko policies of the governor, policies of the mayor. The fire department is loaded with incompetence. Fire hydrants aren't working. I mean, this is just so ripe for ads that speak to her record. She can talk about his background. We'd rather have a cockroach beat. Well, we do have a cockroach, but you could just soon have a cockroach run the office. It doesn't matter what somebody else's background is. The focus is on, what did you do? You were in the job. You were in the job, and you allowed the homelessness to go through the roof. You can't even take your kids to the park to play baseball or soccer without them stepping on a syringe. The crime is absolutely through the roof. It's just in every way. The cost of living is like sky high. Businesses are fleeing the city and the state. California used to be, the United States was the best place to live in the world. And the best place to live in the United States was California. And the best place to live in California was Southern California. And they destroyed all of that. For the first time, I think, in pretty much the country's history, the West Coast, and I just saw this earlier, is now losing people at a faster rate than any other part of the country. That's never happened before, particularly California. People are like fleeing on your watch. So how do you defend that? He's going to be an offense every day. He doesn't have to play any defense, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Well, and people have tried to interview him and ask him questions about, what do you economic policy and climate change and green initiatives, and he's like, okay, we can talk about that stuff once we get drug addicts out of our playgrounds. I mean, there's just so many other issues that the mayor really shouldn't be talking about climate change. That is so far beyond the mayor's purview that it's just a distraction. And it's like dangling a little cat toy and hoping that he swipes at it.
How tone deaf can you get, by the way? That's such an elitist thing to talk about. The people on the street do not care one iota about climate change. My kid can't walk to school without stepping on needles. And when they do get to the school, there's likely to be a shootout in the school. When they do get to the school, they're going to sex change them or something. My daughter can't play in the sports because the boy's going to spike a volleyball in her face 90 miles an hour. The crime is through the roof. Carjackings everywhere. Cost of living is so high you can't afford an apartment. You're driving 100 miles and the gas price is like $7 a gallon because you've run all the refineries out of the state. I mean, how many issues can you attack? She's done nothing about any immigration through the friggin' roof. There's 50 other issues that matter more for the regular Joe on the street. He or she just doesn't care about that stuff. And only someone who's completely tone deaf would not get that, which takes me to, I'll make this quick comment, I'll be quiet. The other candidate that was running, I can't think of her name, But she actually made the comment when they were asking about, I think it was like homeless encampments. That doesn't matter if there's an encampment like 50 feet away from like the school or the house. She actually said that. And she just slipped and said what she really thinks. Because in her neighborhood, she doesn't worry about that. And then, of course, there was that protest movement where some guys went out and set up encampment in front of her house. She got all uptight about it. And that was like a fake encampment. The regular Joe has to deal with real encampments. What are you crying about? That's the exact example of how the leftist elite behave. They put policies in place that destroy everybody else's neighborhood, but their little enclaves are fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was Nithya Raman is the name of the city council member who came in third. So we won't be seeing her on the ballot in November. So good on us, right? But yeah, California potentially is moving, at least in some places, is moving in the right direction. I had some local candidates that I was rooting for that did well, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. But yeah, I mean, and then of course we're looking at the governor's race. We'd
be remiss if we didn't talk about that also. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hilton at number 1, Xavier Becerra at number 2, and then Tom Steyer at number 3. I think they've counted 60% of the vote, which is to me ridiculous. I mean, just frickin' count the ballots, would you? Everybody else does it, but you know, it goes on for days. I think they're saying that they're giving it 3 days, but you know,
see that's
where it stands right now.
Right. That's another one. I remember as a kid, they'd have these elections. You would know within like an hour or two, the polls, they just, you'd run the stats and you knew what they were going to be. But this mail-in ballot nonsense and this all this other monkey business they try to do in order to influence the vote is what's causing all of this.
Yeah. Well, there were some people on Instagram who were talking about, well, I just, since California doesn't check, residency, they don't even check IDs of any kind, we're going to drive from Texas or Arizona and Riverside County and we're going to vote for Spencer Pratt, it's like, come and get me, Hey. I don't think that really affected the vote at all, but you know what, considering how many times, that's happened in the other direction, I don't care. But yeah, so that's where we are for governor. We'll see. Hopefully it'll continue in that direction. I think that, that whole, there's a break the glass scenario that Newsom was sharing with reporters. I think that went so viral that I could see him kind of having a conversation with his, with the Democratic candidates and saying, like looking at Nithya and Karen and saying, look, one of you's got to take the hit. Like there's been so much angst around some key roles and so much interest. If we don't get a Republican in the runoff, we're going to be admitting like that we're corrupt and we're cheating. So, I'm just playing this out in my head. I'm just thinking because it's been so offensive and in your face for so long. The fact that it's getting to this point, I think voters are seeing it. They're no longer fooled. And if a Republican didn't advance in these 2 races and maybe a couple others, like they needed to throw out a sacrificial lamb or 2, I think.
Yeah, what do you think? And I don't know. I mean, we're all in speculation land for sure. And I hear you. My thinking on this whole thing is, nationally, about 30% of the population is crazy. I mean, I think we just say it, right? 30% and I always go back to folks watched the Biden debate and 30% of them thought he did great. So that tells you right there, roughly 30% of people nuts. I thought it was 25%, so it's worse than I thought. But let's just say that. That means 70% of the people are persuadable here. And even if you take a place like California or the West Coast in general, which is going to be more leftist because of the nature of it, let's make that 30%, 40%. So 40% are nuts. 60% are on the table. So I think in a protracted election run, because this hasn't even been protracted, now it's going to be extended out from now to November. of them being forced to speak to these issues, and these issues are unavoidable. I mean, all these guys have to do, the Republicans, is speak to the condition of the state when it's being run by these people. That's all they have to speak to. And I think they'll be fine. I don't think that many people are crazy in these places. I could be proven wrong, but once you get hit over the head by a 2x4 and it's no longer theoretical, burning your city to the pavement, that's kind of a 2x4. People fleeing the state, businesses fleeing the state, refineries shutting down, gas prices. Tell me it's not $7 a gallon.
I won't tell you. I think
it's even worse. We got 50 cents gas tax in Washington, and we're not $7 a gallon. That's how crazy California is. I mean, California is an oil producing state, and it's got the worst gas prices in the country.
We were a gas producing state until we kicked out Valero and Chevron, those two latest ones. And we already know that we import I think we import 60% of our oil.
Yeah,
and that was with two producers, two refineries in the state. So
yeah. I mean, they're ruining the state. And I think when people get hit with a 2x4, now the crazies, you can't persuade them. They are what they are. But most people are going to say, I don't want this anymore. I just don't. And it becomes a vote not necessarily for the other guy, but it's against that one.
Right.
And
Yeah. Well, that's why I think that there's still Dems in the top three, because they were like, I can't really vote for a Republican, but I'll vote for that guy. Like Bianco came in, I think, 4th or 5th. Maybe he came in 4th. So they still wanted, crazy Tom Steyer. I mean, the guy's a loon. And he's saying all sorts of stuff that just make absolutely no sense and are unconstitutional. But they'd rather have that guy than a sheriff, an actual sheriff.
Yeah. Well, if you're, like I said, if you buy into that stuff enough, you're just mindless. There's no logic that can penetrate that. And there's a percentage of the population for whom that's true. That's your King County is the county that houses Seattle. That's where they reside in Washington. Multnomah County in Portland, that's where they reside there. I saw the stat that's pretty interesting. Is of there's something like 30,000 counties in the United States. 95% of the crime is like housed in like less than 1% of the counties. And you can guess what color those counties are. Those counties are going to be blue counties. Yeah. So that's just where it is.
Yeah. Well, in good news, because we can talk about a lot of bad news in California. Well, we are talking about good news, actually.
We are talking about good news.
more good news. They shut down a narco tunnel in San Diego the last couple of days. This was a DHS, DOJ, and Mexican combined effort. And so they seized literally a ton of cocaine from this tunnel operation.
You mean like a ton? As in 2,000 pounds.
As in 2,000 pounds. Arrested 4 people, 2 U.S. and 2 Mexican citizens. Seized a 1-ton, bundle of cocaine, and it's there's been 99 of these tunnels found just in San Diego, and they've been found and sealed.
Now, here's a question you got to ask. What is the street value of that? I mean, that's incredible.
I don't know. I don't have my cocaine calculator to tell you, but I mean, it's a lot. It's a ton of money. I mean, it's a lot.
That is incredible. And the fact, the beautiful thing about what's been happening in the last 9 months, we've been shutting down that border. I'll tell you a funny story, because stories always add color to these things. So I had a sales representative when I worked in San Diego area, and he was telling me that he grew up on the border, like literally on the border. Like his backyard was like 100 yards from the border. And he said as a kid, he'd play in the backyard, and there'd be guys and this is like in the 70s and 80s. He said there guys be creeping along the fence line. They would look at him and they go, shh. He said it would go on all day. Can you imagine?
Like
But
we're
that's
hunting
how,
rabbits.
yeah, we're hiding that. They've been killing that border for the last like 40 years. So it's just so great to see them finally put the kibosh to that. Bye, bye. That's my granddaughter's leaving.
Oh,
See ya.
bye,
Yeah,
Pop Pop.
we had a lot of fun today.
That's awesome. That's
I had
awesome.
I had a grandparent day. It was awesome. I read a
Oh,
whole lot of Dr. Seuss. Uh, what's his name? Mr. Mahoney, will you please go home? Oh, I don't take you guys through all that. Dr. Seuss is fun. Let's put it that way.
yeah, yeah, he is. He's
Yeah,
wild. Um,
exactly. But this
so
stuff's amazing.
yeah, yeah. So good stuff there. In the assembly, however, we talked a little bit about AB 2624, which is aka the Stop Nick Shirley Act. We
Mhm.
talked about that. I don't know, maybe it's been a month or so. But you know, I think everybody knows who Shirley is. This like 22-year-old kid who sprung uh, to the
Minneapolis.
public notice
Mhm.
when he started exposing corruption in Minnesota, and now he's out in California, and he's been going around and visiting learning centers and hospices and things like that. Well, in response, the California Assembly, Shirley Bonta, happens to be the wife of our current Attorney General, Rob Bonta, whose job is to prosecute crimes. I'll bet you it got really uncomfortable when all of this corruption started coming out and some questions were being lobbed at the AG's office like, hey, so how did this go unnoticed for so long? Or how is it that you were alerted about this, as we know, because the auditors have come out and said, we've been talking about this for years. How is it that you haven't done anything about it? So
Mhm.
his sweet wife Shirley took that to heart, and she authored this bill that is called the Stop Nick Shirley Act. That's the I don't know, the unofficial name, and it
Uh,
would if you post a video or an image of somebody that you feel is guilty of a fraud, or if they're involved in an NGO that might be funding fraud,
mhm.
that person, organization, whoever can send you a nice written letter, and if requesting that image or video is taken down. If you don't take it down, you'll be fined a minimum of $4,000 plus
Um,
attorney fees. Plus attorney fees. This is free speech. I
yeah.
can take a picture of absolutely anything and I can say absolutely anything. Obviously, I mean, I can't within reason, of course, but
Mhm.
of course, if I'm accused of something and I'm guilty, I'm going to not want that out there. So
Mhm.
now, without even being proven that this person is guilty or innocent, I'm not even allowed to put that out there in the public. So I mean, it's unconstitutional, and I
Yeah.
people can't believe that it would stand. But somebody's got to challenge it, got to run through that whole process. And in the meantime, I don't know what's going to happen to people
It's
like Nick Shirley. I mean, we're in the thick of it. Like, it's important that we get this information out. So maybe the DOJ will take it on.
this this is what communists do all the time, everywhere and at all times. They have principles, except when it's not in their interest to have principles, and they don't have principles. And it goes back to one of the reasons why I can never remember which of the founding fathers said this. I think it was John Adams. This Constitution is wholly designed for religious people. It will not be suitable for any other. You have to have a moral people in order for this to work. And clearly, someone who would do what you're just describing, these are immoral people. Um, like I said, I think I wrote a rant about this. Our representatives are representative of us. The majority of the country would never behave in the way that the people who represent us behave. And
Right.
hopefully we can get rid of people like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a video that has gone around about Nick Shirley and Amy. Oh gosh, what's her name? I can't remember her last name right now. But anyway, she's been partnering with Nick here in California
Mhm.
and going out and visiting all these places. And they came up to a daycare facility, and there's these two little kids that are out in front of
Mhm.
this daycare facility, which is actually an apartment. It's an
Mhm.
apartment complex, and it's like a single apartment. So they go to the door, and this little kid answers the door, and can you tell me who the daycare manager is? They had the person's name. And before this little kid can answer, I mean, first of all, what's a little kid doing answering the door? Another little kid comes out, and then another little kid comes out. Turns out the daycare manager isn't there, and these little kids are left alone. And
you can't make it
so
up.
I mean, no, but it's heartbreaking. So then they're supposed to just, I would imagine they called, CPS and the police and things like that. But how much more of this is going on that's not found? And what if they hadn't been allowed to show that video?
As bad as this sounds, at least they were there. As opposed to so many of these other ones where there's nobody there at all. They just made it up, right? So the lack of integrity in the system is just stunning. And the one check on that is things like you might get caught. And if you shut down the ability to catch them, which is of course their goal, they'll keep doing this stuff.
Yeah. Just terrible.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. So there is one thing I did, and this is a slight sidestep because I just thought it just hit me the other day, and I just wanted to like rant on this for just a moment. And that is, it's gun control, which is a separate, kind of a sidestep, but I think it was interesting. So I was having this discussion the other day with a friend of mine. We're talking about gun control, and it occurred to me. So we have a right to bear arms. What I'd like to submit to you all, though, is I think we have a duty to bear arms. I would go even a step further. And let me just give you that little research on this. And I had done this research really about 10 years ago, and that's on the Federalist Papers and where they stood with regard to the right to bear arms. So just a couple of thoughts on that. So bear with me while I kind of take you through this thinking. So John Jay, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton, and that was where they took the time to discuss, what the Constitution should look like. And there's a whole section where they did nothing but deal. Several of those letters dealt with the right to bear arms. So Hamilton said that if elected officials betray the people, the only recourse is armed resistance. Those were Hamilton's words. In Article 46, Madison said the U.S. population at that time was about 500,000 people, and it could overwhelm a federal army of 25 to 30,000 troops if the federal government got out of line. So clearly he was thinking that he was afraid of a tyrannical central government. So this had nothing to do with protecting yourself from people who were robbing you or something. This had nothing to do with hunting, like a lot of the left likes to portray it. This thing was written strictly to protect us from an overreaching, crazy federal government. And then you take a look at the Declaration of Independence, which I think is really interesting. So that paragraph that starts out, we hold these truths to be self-evident, which people in our generation all have memorized, of course. Well, right at the end of that, I'm going to read you what it says. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government. Now, here's my question. How exactly will the people alter or abolish a bad government unless they're armed? Right? I mean, it's so common sense. And then a couple of more points for you. So when Hitler's Nazi party took over the Weimar Republic and began to disarm Jews, the Gestapo confiscated guns from Jews and took away all their gun permits. And that's how they made the Jews defenseless, and they could begin the Holocaust. When Stalin started the Ukrainian Holodomor, where they basically starved all the kulaks to death, the first thing they did was they removed all the firearms that kulaks could have. And if you got caught with a firearm, you were either executed on the spot or shipped off to the Gulag. So that's how Stalin took care of the Ukrainians. In Japan, during the samurai period, only the samurais could own weapons. The samurai represented only 5% of the population. The other social classes weren't allowed to have weapons. So basically, the Bushido culture allowed samurai to immediately behead a member of any of the lower classes for infractions as benign as not bowing low enough or maintaining improper eye contact. That's how they rolled. And last but not least, even here in the United States, during the Reconstruction era, the Democrat-run southern states passed all kinds of laws to prevent blacks from having guns, which made them easy targets for KKK-inspired mob lynchings, right? So if you look at all of that, I no longer think you have a right to bear arms. I think we have a duty to bear arms. And if you don't bear arms, you're mooching on your fellow citizens to take care of you in the event that something goes sideways. So there's my passionate play around the right to bear arms. If you have a gun, good. If you have a gun, go get another one. Go get a bazooka. And if you don't have a gun, go get something. There's my mic drop. Was that passionate enough?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Don. And I am following the
Yeah.
orders.
Well, I tell you, it's funny. I never was anti-gun, but I didn't think very much of it until the government lost its mind in 2020. Then me and my whole family went out and got guns, got registered, got lessons, the whole 9 yards. Everybody's got one, right? And I'm not like an enthusiast or anything, right? But it really opened my eyes. And then I don't know if you remember, I think Biden came on and said something crazy. I'm going to paraphrase this, but he said something crazy like, if these people think they can stop us, I'll just have F-16s, go get them. He's talking about American citizens, by the way, right? So this is precisely what the founders were afraid of, an overreaching, crazy federal government that would attack its own citizens. This is why the citizenry has to have it. And this is an interesting thing. In the military, one of the most common things that we know is the reason you want to have a really strong military is that's a deterrent to external aggressors. I would submit to you that the military needs to have strong weapons to prevent us from being attacked by external aggressors. The civilians need to be armed to prevent us being attacked by internal aggressors. And that you could take to the bank. That's a mic drop. So there's my rant.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely right. It's incumbent on us to.
Yeah, because the fact that
I
they
think I'm
know,
frozen again. I'm
pretty
gonna
convinced.
leave
The
again.
fact that they know we have wars. Yeah. Okay. So while she's out, I'll monologue for a minute. The fact that that the radical left knows that we're armed prevents them from doing a lot of crazy stuff. You look at what happened during COVID. What do they do in Australia? They made an effort to get all the guns. People made, and I think they tried that in several locations here. We'll pay you to turn in your guns. The Australians were crazy enough to just follow suit and turn in their guns. Then they turned around when COVID came along and basically started throwing them in the equivalent camps so we didn't get shots and all of this kind of stuff. And it was absolutely nuts. And they did that in a number of European, but you can bet your bottom dollar they didn't do that here. But don't think they weren't thinking about it. They were definitely thinking about it. But the fact that it didn't happen, I think, is largely because this country is more armed than any other country on earth. I saw some stats on that. Something like it's greater than 1 for 1. If you look at the number of firearms per the number of people in the population, there's 350 million people in the United States, I think. Well, there's over 350 million firearms in the United States, and that is a good thing. So I just had one of those first amendments and thought it was really a good thing to speak to, this morning. So I'm just seeing if Leslie's made it back yet. Let's see. So, yep, she's still frozen out there. So I'm going to continue with a couple of other things while waiting for her to come back. Here, I thought was really, really interesting. I'm going to cut and paste this and send it to you all. Have you all noticed that this is like Gay Pride Month? Remember, June was going to be remember a whole month for Pride, by the way. Now, I saw this comedian the other day on some podcast. It was pretty funny. He was talking about, like President's Day. So George Washington, he shares the day with Abraham Lincoln. They only get one day, right? Memorial Day, veterans who died, they only get one day for a holiday. Veterans, people went out and fought for their country. They only get one day for a holiday, right? Christmas, Jesus Christ himself only gets one day. But gays get a whole month. What's up with that? That was pretty funny, right? But the bottom line is, we're seeing a whole lot less of this marketing for Gay Pride Month. We're seeing almost none of it. There's been a dramatic drop in it. I just put a link over there if you look at that article. So Target moves Pride merch aside to spotlight Father's Day and 4th of July holidays. Imagine that, spotlighting Father's Day instead of Gay Pride Month. And on top of that, a number of states have come out with with advertising and marketing around the family. So in Tennessee, the Memphis Commercial Appeal reported uh, Tennessee's Nuclear Family Month. So they're actually having Nuclear Family Month in Tennessee, and that's a resolution signed by the governor of that state. How cool is that? Indiana also is doing a similar thing. They proclaimed Nuclear Family Month. Governor Braun declares June Nuclear Family Month in Indiana. Alabama proclaimed June to be Strong Families Month. In Alabama, Governor Kay Ivey proclaimed June to be Strong Families Month. This is a story that the national media is pretty much ignoring and not talking about. And that is pretty cool. So remember back, it's only been a few years ago when we had these disgusting companies promoting all kinds of cultural suicidal things. Remember Bud Light? John Deere, Harley Davidson, Lowe's, JP Morgan, Walmart, Toyota, all of these companies jumped on the bandwagon of destroying the culture. And it's so awesome to see them fall back in line. What you might call the silent majority, once again, is spoken to slowly, but it has spoken, and that's a real cool thing to see, for sure. And then this jumping around, just one other topic here that I thought would be of interest to you all, and that is what was this? This cancer study in the real world. And I thought this was a really cool thing. I'm going to cut and paste this and put it in here too, because it's so interesting. And again, this is another one of these things that just isn't getting any play. So this was a study that was done looking at the impact of a combination of ivermectin and I'm going to blow the pronunciation of this, mebendazole in cancer patients, right? And this is a pretty amazing study. This suggested a staggering 85% benefit for cancer patients taking a combination of these two really cheap, and both of these drugs are really cheap, ivermectin and mebendazole, anti-parasitic drugs. At 6 months, fully a third of respondents reported no current evidence of disease, 16% reported regression, and another 36 reported stabilized disease, for a combined and stunning clinical benefit ratio of 84%. And that's with a 95% confidence interval, which means you can do the study over and over again, and 95% of the time you get the same result. So half the patients reported the strongest outcomes, which is basically a regression in the disease, which is far higher than typical outcome studies for people having metastatic tumors. This is absolutely stunning. And it included a wide mix of cancer patient types. So we're talking prostate, breast, lung, colon, liver, kidney. Within 12 months of initial diagnosis, 20% of these people have been managing the disease for 5 years and more. Now, that is an amazing outcome. Let's see if I can get Leslie. And you never hear about that in the national press because the pharmaceutical companies sure as heck aren't going to push it, because they're not going to make any money promoting that. So that was my little rant on that. I'm not sure we were able to hear much of that, Leslie. Leslie's back. Welcome back.
I know. Thank you. I don't know. Technical difficulties
That's
plague me.
It happens. I'll find out a way to keep talking. That's never a problem. No, but I just been ranting. I'm not sure if you saw that study. It was a combination of ivermectin and mebendazole, I think, to treat patients who had cancer. So both of those are anti-parasitic drugs. Both of them are off patent. So of course the cost of them is next to nothing. And the combination of them has been shown to dramatically reduce the progression of cancer. Now you would think that they'd be on a microphone blaring this from every major network that they could, but you're hearing hardly anything about it. And of course the reason is the drug companies aren't going to make any money using it, right?
I didn't see the ivermectin and what?
Ivermectin and mebendazole, mebendazole. Those are anti-parasitic drugs. And ivermectin was, we all know about ivermectin by now.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, Trump has that task force, or I guess Robert Kennedy Jr. has the task force dedicated to off-label, not off-label uses, but exploring uses for drugs that are no longer on patent and using them
Mhm.
for all sorts of other things. So and also making what do you call it, like shadow drugs, basically, that using
Mhm.
those same formulations in order to gosh, the name is escaping me right now, but where did that come out? Where did that study come out?
Let's see what if I can find what journal that was published in. Blah blah blah. I'm not showing where it was published, but clinical alcohol pressure their observational cohort. Let me see if I
Hmm.
click on it, maybe it'll show me. Let's see. Hang on a second here.
I did,
Because this is the other thing. The national press loves to block this stuff too.
yeah, I did see a
Like,
study that was talking about ivermectin use in was it ivermectin and some use in breast cancer.
mhm. Yes, yes. Let's see. Oh, I see it here. Just a second here. So I can get it. I'm just pulling it up on the side here to see where it was published. Yeah, and this. But I tell you, the internet's doing a great job of blocking lots of stuff in searches of these
Wow.
kinds of things. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Oh, so
wheels
I'm in the
keep
chat,
spinning on this,
which is a good place for everybody.
but
Yeah.
yeah, but the cool thing is though is you can't shut and more people are getting to be more and more aware of it. For one thing, I mean, I'm sure you caught this, and this is kind of, but remember, just in terms, he was a former AG. She's been diagnosed, I think, with thyroid cancer. Tulsi Gabbard, her husband, just developed cancer. Vanessa Trump, president's ex-wife, just got developed breast cancer. It's like everywhere you look, it's cancer, 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 and it's way up from where it was 5 or 6 years ago. What in the world could have happened 5 or 6 years ago? That would cause this. I wonder.
Tell me,
It's
Don.
just it's only going up. Yeah, it's this plain as it's this pose on your face. Um, that something sideways is going
Yeah.
on here.
Yeah.
I know my personal life is just rampant. It's just rampant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I'm grateful that all this information is coming out, that there's so much more transparency, that we're being encouraged to challenge doctor's orders or the science, and do our own research. I mean, there's an explosion of natural remedies and naturopath influencers and um, you know uh, health biohacks out there, that people are really getting into it. I mean, it kind of feels like hippy dippy, and that movement, that where food is medicine, and all of that stuff. I hope that people kind of get back to it. That doesn't mean that we don't need surgeries and we don't need serious
Sure.
medications, and when that comes up, of course, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I think people are starting to recognize that our food is poisonous and
Yeah.
drugs
Yes.
are overprescribed. And we can read the studies just like anybody else can read the studies, and we should.
Right. Yeah.
And we should be
Well,
open
yeah.
to finding healing in a variety of ways, not just waiting 30 days to get in for your primary and then going to see a specialist, right?
Oh yeah. Well, something has clearly gone sideways in the last 50 years. I mean, it's just clearly. You look at, first of all, life expectancy is down for the first time in American history. We have life expectancy going in the wrong direction. That's number one.
Hmm.
Number two, kids are like gigantic. All right. I'm talking like gigantic. And I think I've said before on this podcast, I only knew one fat kid. My wife said the same thing growing up, only one. And now they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's
Diabetes, people getting diabetes in the 20s,
yeah.
right? There's no way you can't tell me something is sideways. The average American's on something like 6 or 7 drugs. That wasn't true, 30 years ago. It's like nuts. And then you look at the food supply. There is no question that the makeup of the food, and you can start with the hot stuff, has to have had a dramatic impact on this stuff. And it's more than just weight. When you start putting that much sugar into your body, you're altering a whole, because the system is our bodies are like an interconnected machine. You do something wrong, but item A, Z, and the other side of your body is going to feel it. That's just how it is. And so we're seeing all kinds of things. I mean, it's been known for a long time, for example, that obesity is related to cancer.
Yeah.
When people who are obese are more likely to get cancer. A lot of people don't realize that.
Wow. Well, and it's not just the food, it's of course our environment, it's the things that we're putting on our skin. It's our right. It's the toiletries, it's our soaps, it's our sunscreens, it's our makeup, it's our lotion. It's all just dripping these chemicals into our body. It's our clothing. It's we're not using natural fibers, and we want the perspiration wicking shirt at the gym, which I appreciate not having sweat stains, right? And we want the nylon Lululemon pants or whatever they are, spandex. So yeah, it's coming from everywhere, and it's difficult to live completely clean.
Yeah, it's rational to look at that. And then we go back to the vaccines. I'm not talking about the COVID vaccines; those are obviously like trash. But I mean the number of vaccines that we get now, that kids get, and then of course the quality of them is not the same as the ones that we got. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it's insane the amount more vaccines that people get, and then they're not the same. So when you add all those things together, you're talking about, like you said, the environmental things, what's happening to the food, all of these different shots, all of these medicines. And remember, when we study medicines, we study them by themselves. That one drug, what that one drug does, we don't study it in combination with all of the stuff I just talked about.
Yeah.
So we don't. Let's say for example, taking the antidepressant. We don't study the antidepressant when it's being used with an antihypertensive and an antithyroid and an oncology drug and a diabetes drug, and you've had all these vaccines and you're 400 pounds overweight, and we don't. So we don't even know what it's going to do in the real world. That's in the lab world. So at the end of the day,
we're in that lab, and the results are clear. We've been poisoned, and we have to hold the chemical companies and the pharma companies and the regulators. We have to hold them responsible. They're going to put things in the ingredients if they're allowed to, right? I mean, sugar, they say sugar is more addictive than heroin, and that's allowed. It's in everything. It's in salad dressings, it's in ketchup, it's in absolutely everything. So,
and it's legal. And trust me, I know from experience, it tastes really good. Because I am a total addict. I'm a recovering foodie.
Oh, okay.
It's not even food. It's chemicals that masquerade as food. It's not really food. And I think that's another thing we have to shift our mindset from. If man packaged it up, it's probably not really food. And we got to start going back to eating food.
Yeah. If you're, maybe a good rule of thumb is if it has a stated expiration date, it's probably not going to be good for you. Right? You can tell when your fruit goes bad. You can tell when your meat goes bad. But if something's in a bag, and or whatever, if it's going to last for 30 to 60 to 100, whatever. I mean, some of this stuff lasts for what, a year?
Years. Yeah.
Probably not good for you.
Something's got a really long. It just reminded of this. This is about 20 years ago. This World War II veteran was at the end of his life, was cleaning out his basement. He came across I forget what they called them in the day, but meals. We call them meals ready to eat now, MRE. So the food in the can, right? And he opened it, and it was as good as it was back in the 40s. So it is what it is.
Oh my gosh. Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
but yeah, it's kind of a return to the basics, you know. Yeah, and there's a lot of good news. And I will always go back and say this: when you look at where we were, what 2 years ago, 3 years ago, this is amazing. You know, this is amazing. I think one of the things that we've come to realize, though, is this was the enemy had entrenched themselves far worse than I think we could ever have imagined. I had no idea. Um, I knew it wasn't good, right? And I knew it was bad, but I had no idea. Um, and so, the best thing about a problem or being in a war is when you realize you're finally in one. You don't know you're in one. That's when you're in
Mhm.
deep trouble. So we finally know we're in one, and we're finally fighting back. And I'm just, I'm thrilled, basically. Got lots of challenges, but I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say the enemy, I mean, I would say that, um, you know, of course we're in a spiritual war, but we also are being affected by the enemy's influence in our leadership and in right and all these captive agencies that this is bad behavior and law enforcement, politics, teachers unions, just everything, right? Anywhere there's people, there's going to be, potential for corruption and bad things. And I just being aware of that. I mean, like just a little example. A friend of mine was that hurt his shoulder. Was out on the weekends, fell off his motorbike, hurt his shoulder. He's been recovering. He's doing all the things: PT, acupuncture, rest, isolation, all the things. And he went to the
Right.
doctor yesterday. He went to PT 2 days ago. They worked out his shoulder, killed him. I mean, he was just in tons and tons of pain. Went to the doctor yesterday to go see an OT, orthopedic. The guy, had to, see the range of motion and do all the things. And again, he woke up today ruined. And he's like, I feel like all of this recovery that
Mhm.
I've been doing over the last 45 days just was broken. And I said, well, you need to call the doc and you need to let
Uh-huh.
him know that he pushed it too far. You need to hold people accountable. Like you have to let them know,
Right.
look, you needed to do your tests, but you've just erased all my recovery. And that may be, maybe
Yeah.
some people aren't comfortable doing that, but I just feel like people need to start talking and saying, look, just because you're in a position of authority, just because I'm not going to just go along and have you ruin my
Mhm.
body and hurt me. Right.
Yeah.
Now he's
Yeah.
leaning. I don't know. It's just a small example of things where I feel like people just need to start talking more and just start saying, you know what, that's not right. I gave you access
Mhm.
to, my health, my body, my whatever, and you hurt me. And now I'm recovering and I can't sleep and it hurts during the day and, days on days upon days. I don't know. We just have to be more vocal
Well,
about things and see are
well,
wrong.
ultimately, and that's this other issue. We as a society have fallen into this credentialing thing too much, where we think just because somebody has a piece of paper and a degree behind their name, that means they know everything. And the reality is they don't. They might have an expertise in a narrow area, but especially when it comes to things like your body. Hey, you live in this thing. So you're the ultimate one that has to be in charge of it. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to take advice and listen to what they say and then make a decision around whether it makes sense for you, but that's the backside of it. You're about whether it makes sense for you, not them. Thanks for your advice. Ultimately, is your body. You have to take responsibility for it. And I think
Yeah,
that's a great attitude to have with everything, by the way, not just that, but particularly your body, because hey, you're living in it.
that's right. You're stuck with
So
it.
you're stuck
Yeah.
with it. Come heck or high water is what you got. Well, my friend, we are near the end of the road here. I can't believe it. It's 3 minutes till the top of the hour. We did it again. Well, I hope you all had as good a time as us, and I hope you learned something. Um, we always learn something. And thank you all for participating in this. This is always a blast. Leslie, any final comments or thoughts before we sign off?
No, I mean, I'm just so sorry that I keep having all these weird technical difficulties and I'm going to be working. If anybody has any ideas, I've switched browsers. I've tried starting and stopping my computer. If anybody knows anything that I should be doing, please email Dawn and let me know and I will do it. Maybe I need to, anyway. But I just enjoy being part of these conversations. And Dawn, you are just such a deep researcher with history and with science, and and your channel is amazing, by the way, your Substack. So if anybody is interested in seeing Dawn in another place, his Substack channel is fantastic. So I just feel really lucky to be part of this conversation, and I appreciate hearing from you and talking to you and reading the comments in the chat. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, hey, absolutely. You made this so much fun. And I miss Sunny too, but man, you've been a great addition. And we'll have the three of us on here one of these times soon. I talked to her
I
a
hope
couple of
so.
days ago. So yeah, we'll make that happen. So
Good.
all
Good.
right.
Good. All right, everybody.
Well, good night, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Still there?
Yeah, but it says the stream is still, yeah, it says we're still recording.
I'm not sure what this thing is.